A revolutionary. Say whoa. Trap revolutionary. Got the wave of too scary. Doing this thing like Malcolm ain't by any means necessary. We ain't got it by no one seen hand. We got the master plan. Get the movement going.
Y'all want to do this video real quick. Trump versus California. Mail-in voting. So we got another major issue, with the Trump administration, trying to restrict voting. That's basically what it is.
Here are the couple of things that the president can do right now. He can authorize the Department of Homeland Security to start compiling lists of citizens in each state sent out to those states. And he can also tell the DOJ that they have to prioritize the prosecution of people who give ballots to those who are unauthorized to vote. The majority here says those two things are not connected and that they don't force states to do anything. But the three dissenting justices say you have to see these two things as of a piece. If you give states a list of citizens who are allowed to vote, and you also tell DOJ, go after the people who give ballots to people who are unauthorized to vote, what you're essentially doing is saying you had the list all along. And if you give a ballot to someone who's not authorized to vote, the fact that you're giving them a list of citizens is something that DOJ may use in the future to say you intentionally did this, you recklessly did this. In other words, as Justice Sotomayor says, you're basically giving people tools that you're going to use against them in future prosecutions. That could very much chill state and local election officials in their provision of ballots. Obviously, giving state citizenship lists to people who are supportive of the president's agenda is also potentially a problem. Think about red states with deep blue cities that maybe have large immigrant populations. That's where you could see the the use of these citizenship lists being potentially really pernicious in the lead up to the November election.
Saying that proponents of the Supreme Court's ruling are saying, it provides security, it provides trust, it provides, credibility more so to voting and, regulating voting and making it a more secure, what they say, more secure platform, right? So I am just like, it's another, here we go with another just another issue, another problem, it seems like, they are creating to, impact voting and impact voting outcomes. So I just like, man, I just think like, when is enough? When will they stop with all the shenanigans? That's really what it seems like, and all of the subversive tactics, to win elections or to influence elections, to see if, really not see, just to try to stay in power, so it's just like, I think it's problematic, that you keep making these to me just irrational decisions, or irrational claims, irrational arguments, to deal with voting, and even with the tariffs, like dealing with Canada, right? Saying he will raise tariffs on all Canadian products. I'm gonna say 20% or more. Then Canada comes back saying they're gonna raise tariffs on certain American products. Like going to Canada. So you know, it's just kind of what it is. It seems like a lot of back and forth, a lot of decisions are being made, you know, and like I said in the video before, it seems like just outright stupidity to me. You know, you talk about strengthening the economy, strengthening the country, and you know, and that, but it seems, you know, kind of like it's just a power trip. It's like no thought behind, really like no thought behind what's going on. You know, what type of measures are being made or put in place to actually make the country better. You know, it's skewed towards unfairness, injustice, bias, you know, all to get the upper hand. You know, instead of letting it be a fair process and just let it play out itself, that's what it is, like skewed towards. You know, and I think that Trump is like known for that. You know, I would do whatever I need to do to get the upper hand. You know, and I'll I'll cry wolf in this series. And if I don't get my way, you know, I'm gonna cry about it. So it's like, man, just, you know, you don't win, then you say the election's rigged. It's like, I don't know, man. It seems like it's, it's just, it just seems like it's a problematic administration. It's always some form of ill-begotten policies or something that is being engendered or implemented or argued in court, you know, brought forth in court to gain upper hand or to get some form of unfair advantage. That's just what it is, man. You know, and that needs to stop. It really needs to stop because it's getting out of hand. So much so to where you want the upper hand so bad, but you're hurting people in the process. You know, and the system is getting more and more broken to me. You know, it's really getting more and more broken. You know, because like I said, and even in the sense that, you know, the platform he ran on was of division, not to bring the country together. You know what I'm saying? It was on a platform of division. You know, make America great again, which I said, which I, you know, basically is a platform based on you make America great. You make America great by marginalizing a portion of its citizens. You know, and mainly you have in mind of marginalizing black people further, you know, to maintain power, you know, or to so-called make America great, you know, by keeping a people in a certain position, you know, and then from on the backs of those people, you elevate your people, you know, above, you know. So that's basically what that platform is about, you know, and it's sickening, you know, that this is going on, you know, instead of like strengthening the country and making the country better, you know, based on a platform of togetherness, you ran on a platform of division, you know. So, you know, that's you know, that's just problematic in itself. You know, so it's always, to me, it's always something. Like he's a problematic child to me. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. Trump is like a problematic child. You know, you can't get your way, you're gonna cry about it. You know, or this is mine. You know, I'm taking. You know, give me my toy. You know, you can't have it. No, I'm not gonna share. You know, it's like, come on, man. Like this is problematic. You know, and you know, it's no way. Like I said, it's no way he should even been in the Oval Office. No way. You know, running the country. You know, 34 felons, from what I understand, convicted felon. You know, that's crazy. Then come out, end up being found in the Epstein file. You know, so yeah, man. You know, it's no way a black man could have been in any other race. You know, and that's not even playing the race card. It's just no way possible that would even happen. Not even one felony from anybody else being able to get in the White House. This man got 34. Probably have some more, on the court docket. Just hadn't been found out or hadn't went to court about it just yet. So yeah, man. I just it's getting it's just out of hand, and I just think that it's better for him to just not be in office, or to go for this administration to hurry up and get out of office. So it's like I said, it's just problematic. But yeah, let's say I want to report on this because this is what it is. You're trying to strengthen you're strengthening the voting process. Or you're saying that you are protecting, or making the voting process, the mail-in voting process, a bit more rigorous, to where people have it increases people's faith or trust in in that system, the voting process. But like I said, no, I don't buy it. It's just to restrict and to influence outcomes of the voting process, because it was said from that it negatively affects impact. Where in Texas, it was noted that it negatively impacts Black people, Latinos, and as well as Asian people. So you just on a federal level, it probably, like I said, would end up being the same thing, because Texas, from what I understand, did as far as voting in Texas, it affects, as I guess they did like somewhat of a, not a poll, but basically a research. They did the Brennan Center researchers found non-white Texans were at least 30% more likely than white voters to experience an application or ballot rejection. And this is in 2022 primary. So yeah, it's like, man, yeah, it had, let's say Texas 2021 voting law found that after new mail ballot identification requirements were imposed, Black, Latino, and Asian voters were significantly more likely than white voters to have mail ballot applications or ballots rejected. So that's what's going on with that, man. It's just like I said, man. It's like man. It's sad. Using every form of whatever, any means to affect voting and outcomes. Just what it is, man. So yeah, I just want to report on that, man. I just got to do something about this situation. And I know groups out there are like challenging and filing motions or stays, filing certain objections to these things, and filing certain injunctions, so this will not be allowed to actually be, basically ruled in favor of this particular, this particular argument, as far as on the, like restricting the mail-in ballots. So anyway, I just want to report on this. I just think it was important to say something about it. I think we just all need to stick together and not allow this tyranny, what I would say, to happen or to be put in place. So that's basically what it is. I got to get my way, or it's no way. So yeah, that's basically what the Trump administration has been about. Trump himself actually as well, like just himself. He put his whole, his whole way of of doing things into this administration, and the administration then took on this what he, how he operates, his whole MO, But anyway, let me get up off Roger. I want to say that, I hope y'all out there doing well, living life full of love and happiness, doing great, striving for grace every day. I appreciate y'all liking, sharing, commenting on the videos. We can agree or we disagree. We can hash it out. I'm always be respectful towards y'all. Ask y'all to be respectful towards me. But to the next one, y'all. Love y'all. All right, y'all.
Fuck it, go ahead and blow off the dough. Step through the maze, man, and became amazing. About to rewrite history and change a page in a crooked book that never told us the true story. Like how we were kings and queens before the slave story, before the killing, stealing, and drug dealing on some real shit. We ran the world.